Hello, lovely PC Gaming Weekspot viewer / listener. A little pre-show note here, and not a great one. I do apologise. Not the great comeback after a couple of weeks off, but there was a slight issue with the recording this week, so it doesn't sound quite as smooth as it probably normally does. And also, sadly, Mystery Steam Reviews has been lost to time. The audio during that section, for whatever reason, just went completely wayward. But for those keeping score, Matthew won 2-1. I think, yeah, it was 2-1. And I also doomed once. I was saying it was a tactical doom, if anyone wants to put that into the history books. So yes, I do apologise. Sound not quite as up to the standards that PC Gaming Weekspot normally is, and also there isn't a Mystery Steam Reviews this week, but there's plenty of other chats. Some Deathloop, it's good. But yeah, Mystery Steam Reviews will resume next week. But yeah, for the record books, Matthew won 2-1 if you want to keep score. So yeah, please do enjoy the remainder of this episode of the PC Gaming Weekspot that I've been able to salvage somewhat. Not somewhat. It's been salvaged. Please do enjoy. Thank you very much for your patience, for your time, and for supporting the PC Gaming Weekspot. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to the PC Gaming Weekspot. Your recap of the last 7 days in PC video gaming. I'm a little out of practice. My name is Colm Vahn, and joining me this very week, he knows Kung Fu. It's the one and only Mr. Matthew Castle.
Hello.
Hello, Matthew.
I can't believe that we've had 2 weeks of potential cultural activity for you to riff on. And what I get is he knows Kung Fu.
Well, I feel like that is that not the real touchstone of pop culture over the last 2 weeks? It happened only, when was it?
I don't even know what that refers to.
Well, I'm kind of bending the rules a little bit because it's not a direct quote from the new trailer, but it is a quote.
Oh, it's a Matrix thing. I thought it might be Shang-Chi and the old magic rings.
To give it its official title. Yes, The Matrix is coming back, Matthew. When I saw all this, I don't know what it says about my life, that the first time I saw this was when Hideo Kojima tweeted something about it, and I was like, what? Is he making a Matrix game? I was like, no, it's much more exciting. They're making a new Matrix film. The first Matrix is obviously brilliant. And then, it gets progressively worse. I will say that no one should ever dispute the quality of the highway scene in the second Matrix. That is top-notch stuff. Rest of it, not great. But are you excited about a Matrix 4? Do you feel like that the series has had its, like, come on, can we not move on? Are we really making a sequel to this 20-year-old franchise?
Yeah, I think so. I think... I can't remember which, because it's only directed by one of the Wachowskis this time.
Lana, I believe.
Yeah. But I think they're both interesting filmmakers and have made lots of stuff I like. Yeah, like a big blockbuster film made by someone with a bit of vision. Like, yeah, for sure. I imagine it'll be something. Well, you know what I mean? Like, these days... everything's, because it's all just like Marvel
these
production.
days.
It's because it's a lot of like Marvel production line stuff. It's quite rare to get anything which, has a kind of look and feel of its own. And The Matrix is such a distinctive universe that I think you can at least expect that. Like the trailer, just, the colours in it, and it all looks kind of unreal in a way that, few films do. I'm into it. I'm into... we're assuming young Morpheus.
Yes. Yeah.
New Morpheus.
It's a shame not to see Lawrence back, but I believe he was killed off in was it the Matrix Online or something? I saw stories about that.
Right.
That
But
Morpheus.
I thought what's her chops died in the films as well, didn't she?
Trinity.
Yeah. See, remember,
Did
she dies and he like she dies in the real world and he has like a big old cry in the third film.
He does have a big old cry. You're right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like with the Matrix, they can just be like, "Oh fuck," you know. You can
Well,
just
yeah,
make up,
I mean, you can just plug people back into the Matrix, can't you?
Exactly.
You're just data.
But there were a couple of other things happening over the last 2 weeks. It's been a while since we've done an episode. I have mostly for the last 2 weeks stayed away from video games news. It's going to really detach myself, but and there's a few kind of bigger stories that we'll just kind of touch on for this bit, Matthew, because they're moldy at this stage. But I do still indeed have some information snacks for you. So why don't you grab your news crank there and open it up.
Info snacks for his gob.
What? That looks sore. That looks just like bah. Yeah. So first moldy information snack I have for you, Matthew, is that Skate 4 is coming to PC. It's good, isn't it?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, that is Skate 4 is coming to PC.
Oh, I genuinely managed to miss this.
Yeah, that's good.
It's gonna grind onto PS4.
I'm looking forward to those headlines. They're Sonic
That's
speeds
exactly
into
the kind of
stores.
shit people write, isn't it?
Oh Jesus, yeah. Gran Turismo crashes into GameStop. Sure. The second information snack I have for you, something that you in particular might be excited about if you haven't seen, although I'd imagine you did, is that in an interview with a Brazilian outlet called Adora Cinema, Norman Reedus, he of Walking Dead fame, more or less confirmed a Death Stranding 2. Or at least that there is a possibility of it, because he said, quote, "I think we're doing a second Death Stranding. The game is in negotiations right now, so yay." Yay? Yeah? Happy?
Yay. Definitely not nay. Yeah.
I mean, the game is in negotiations. It's all nothing confirmed yet.
Feels like with the director's cut and everything, they're kind of getting behind it in too big a way for it not to be more of this at some point.
It seems like a no-brainer. It was popular.
Yeah. It's story-wise, his thing feels relatively wrapped up by the end of it.
The only thing is, like we were saying about the Matrix, though, in Death Stranding, could they not just make up some Kojima logic and be...
any old bullshit could happen and get him back in. Unless he's... I guess he's not talking about the extra stuff he's done for the director's cut. I'm always surprised when people blunder into these things. You think they'd be like NDA'd up to the eyeballs.
You would imagine so, yeah.
But at the same time, you can't really imagine... You can imagine Kojima, who's, really controls the narrative, being kind of cross about this and having to weigh up being really cross that he doesn't get to do, like, the full Kojima reveal that he'd like to do, versus I still want to be friends with Norman Reedus for some reason. I say for some reason. I'm sure Norman Reedus is lovely. And
in case you're listening.
If he is a big fan of this, the Weekspot. I forgot what it was called for a second there. So he's like, do I send him an angry text? Like, come on, man.
What do you do? A passive-aggressive, a sub-tweet, maybe?
Yeah. Like,
TFW
I like
actors.
I like it when my friends don't reveal my secret projects. And Norman Reedus is like, wait, is that me? Oh, jeez.
Another information snack I have for you is that Brendan PlayerUnknown Green has left Krafton to set up a smaller studio in Netherlands. There's no idea no word yet on what he's working on, but yeah, this is Mr. PlayerUnknown. Obviously, it's now just called PUBG Battlegrounds, which still irks me, but
whenever I see the word Krafton, I always think of
Craft work.
No, the cheese, craft cheese,
Oh.
the plastic sandwich cheese.
I was going to ask you if I mean, I'm not a massive fan of plastic cheese. I don't
used
know.
to be quite into it. I used to eat it like as a snack, just eat a slice without anything.
Listen, you do
Just
what you can.
Open up a little floppy disks-sized piece of cheese. God, I could happily gobble a couple of those. Have you heard his plans for his new mad thing, Player Unknown?
He's
sort of been doing the interview rounds while he's been away. He's been going around saying that they're trying to build like the biggest open world map. Or I don't know if it's the biggest ever, but basically this sort of 16 kilometer. I swear I heard the number 16 in there. A 16 insert unit of distance sized map. That's going to be like the biggest open world, like mass multiplayer map of all time.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So what does it sound? Does it sound like another PUBG?
Have a good time. I wouldn't build another. Yeah, not a PUBG. I think it's like he's talking up this map as a place that you can go, and it won't just. It sounds a bit more ambitious than PUBG. It's like it's going to be this amazing living world with all these people in it doing stuff. He's basically building the Matrix.
Well done, Brendan. Wow, that's quite...
This is the Matrix origin story.
Jesus,
that's what they don't tell you in the
impressive.
films. It all starts when a man called Player Unknown
just parachutes in.
Player Unknown is actually a very Matrixy,
proper Matrixy
name.
Yeah,
like if there was a weird character who's called Player Unknown, you're like, they don't have a name.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Matthew.
You would definitely slow motion kick that person in the face.
That's some good journalism.
That's not bad for quite early in the morning, which I should point out we're recording this earlier than usual.
Yes, we are. So, give us about 10 minutes to warm up and then we'll be firing on all cylinders. And some last little information snacks for you, Matthew. I've only included these, like they're just green, like these should definitely be thrown out at this stage. Green and black mold all over them. But some Gamescom stuff. Saints Row is indeed being rebooted. Some people got very cross at it, and it is out on the 25th of February 2022. Did you see all the Saints Row stuff?
Do you see this?
I did.
Beforehand?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
You did a good job of covering that up, didn't you? Sneaky, deceptive sod. All that. I'll be interested to see what this is going to be, knowing full well what it is. I'm a scam.
I'm disappointed, Matthew. I am, well, within reason. Like, as I was saying before we took the break, yeah, the best thing about Saints Row is the kind of the wackiness, the lack of self-seriousness, and this appears to be quite serious. Well, not quite. It looks more Watch Dogs-y. So it's
I definitely hear that complaint. But I thought like the little snippets of gameplay just looked like Saints Row to me, like explosions and miniguns and a helicopter carrying a car around. I thought, yeah, it looks all right.
It might be all right. It also appears to have lost a bit of that identity that made Saints Row feel different, whereas this, without the Saints Row branding, looks like another one of those. Another open world game wherein there will be some levity, of course, yes, but for the most part it is, this relatively serious story. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
It's that like the lead narrative guy on it is a guy called Jeremy Bernstein, who was like the lead writer on Dying Light 2. And I've seen him. I've watched a few of him doing some like GDC talks about games writing, and they're really good. Like he's a really smart, switched on guy, and he was often talking about like some of the theoretical challenges of doing like good storytelling and good narrative design in open worlds. So part of me is kind of interested to see like how that actually manifests now that he is doing one.
I mean, listen, it might be all right. It's not out for another while, so
yeah, I mean, it could be anything at this point. But
yeah, but like your first impression's quite good. My first impression's meh. So
I don't have too much of a connection to say like
fair, yeah.
I sort of roll my eyes at the whole thing, really.
Do you have any connection, knowing full well the answer, to XCOM? Because Matthew, the Marvel XCOM thing is real, sort of. Because it's
not an XCOM thing.
It's not really an XCOM thing, yeah. Midnight Suns also revealed during Gamescom. It's like card-based battling combat with RPG-ness, where you go and you have chats with Doctor Strange and Blade and all the lads.
That stuff just looks like sort of Persona, except you can hang out with Doctor Strange instead of like some doofus in school.
Were you hoping for something a bit more? Like, are you disappointed that this isn't more XCOM-y?
I would rather that they made a game that sort of fits it. I was reading the Edge magazine cover feature on this, and they were sort of saying, quite early, like they did start looking at it from the XCOM angle, and it just didn't really make sense for like the kind of tone of those battles and the pace of those fights and what these characters were capable of. It didn't really make sense to restrict them to the same systems as XCOM. So they decided, I would rather someone did that and went, no, we're going to tackle this and we're going to come up with something new. Like, what's great about that team, and I think what people loved about XCOM was, that they approached it with like a fresh pair of eyes, and they applied some really neat thinking to it, came up with some really cool kind of gameplay solutions to like smoothing or improving that genre. So the idea of seeing like those design minds apply that to something else, I think is always cool. It's like a new thing. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
I have no connection to, I have no idea what like Midnight Suns. I saw some people on Twitter getting excited like it's a, it's a vibe or something, but
I'm the same.
Blade. It all looks a bit 90s to me, but
is that because Blade is in it?
Yeah, I think I associate Blade with the 90s.
90s. I mean, the film franchise is quite 90s, But yeah, those are your information snacks. Other things happened as well, but who cares? It's all happened far too long ago. Matthew, I want to talk about more recent news, bigger news. And it's been a long time since I heard his voice, so please tell me. I need somebody to tell me that news is exciting. So please, Hugh, take it away.
Hello, I'm Hugh Edwards. Working in news is exciting.
Yes! Headlines and Hot Takes is the part of the PC Gaming Weekspot where we take you through the bigger news stories of the past 7 days. Matthew, did you watch the PlayStation Showcase thing, which I think was the official title?
Yeah, I did. I almost turned it off when lots of people started playing chess in like the future and they were all dressed up as kings and stuff. I was like, I don't know if I want this, but that's got nothing to do with us and everything to do with PlayStation.
So obviously a lot of PlayStation exclusive things happened there at the end. We won't go into all that. Although well up for Beer Belly Thor. That looks good. I mean, I don't know, before we get into it, what did you think of it overall? Because I thought some people were losing their minds at this. And I was there going, really? I mean...
Yeah, like...
It's just, is it not a lot of, like, Marvel stuff? Again, I know I'm saying this as somebody who likes Marvel,
Yeah, but that's their whole thing is, like, very Marvel, both in the literal sense that they're making 2 Marvel games, but also in the sense of, like, all the Marvel films, like PlayStation just have a thing now. Like they know what works for them. They have a particular game that works for them, and they just sort of like bang them out. You can just bang out endless Marvel games. it's either Marvel games or it's sad dads filmed over the shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and that's their thing, and they know to lean into it. I did like the very solemn Gran Turismo trailer with like the organ music or whatever. It's great that in this day and age of being humble, there is still a massive racing team that's completely up its own arse. I've got a lot of respect for that. This is going to be a religious experience. I think that's great.
That's terrific. It's terrific. So yeah, there was some PC related announcements as well. We'll go through a couple of them, some of the more bigger ones. The first one that comes to mind is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, this remake. It's not a remaster. It's a remake of the original games being developed by Aspyr, and the lead producer on the game. He popped up on the live stream post show, which it went into the announcements a little bit more, and he clarified that yes, not a remaster, full remake, quote, from the ground up. And the team's aim is to, quote, honor the original story, which makes it sound a little bit like they will be if you're honoring an original story rather than replicating it, it will be slightly different, you would imagine. Now, I have zero attachment to Star Wars, so obviously I have zero attachment to Knights of the Old Republic. And you have a minimum amount of attachment to Star Wars, I believe.
I think you can have no attachment to Star Wars, but still some attachment to Knights of the Old Republic.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I don't have much connection to Star Wars, but it's a great game. It was a great game. I played it way back when on PC and thought it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, really much closer to like a proto Mass Effect than anything else. Except with the light and dark being, your Paragon Renegade being, Sith and Jedi or whatever. This was really good fun back in the day. I loved it. Good characters. He said, but put a gun to my head, could I name any of them? There was a robot that was really antisocial. I remember
good
that
stuff.
much. Some good twists, some fun locations, kind of sort of barreled along. I think people were just surprised that there was this really, really good Star Wars thing. This really good sort of compelling Star Wars story happened at this particular time when Star Wars stories weren't particularly great. Yeah, I mean...
So it sounds like you would be up for this then.
Yeah.
I know all we have to go on so far is like 11 seconds.
I don't really understand this like remake thing that seems to be happening a lot now in terms of there are reboots and remasters, and that's all fine. But this whole like Dead Space, but we're going to redo it so dramatically with so much new thinking that you think, well, why don't you just make a new one? And I kind of feel the same way about this. If you're going to go to all this effort of like completely rethinking this thing from the ground up, but you still want the safety net of like trading on the recognition and the fondness for that original game. I just like I don't understand. I just don't understand why some people land on, well, let's make the third one, and some people land on, let's remake the first one again. That those are the kind of two options here. Like, because I know, unless they dramatically change it, I know that story. I've played that story. I don't need to play it again. I don't need to hear it again. It can never be as impactful or as effective the second time around. Same with Dead Space. It's just, you'd know it, and you're like, why bother?
So I'm sort maybe I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I get what you're saying, and I myself, if they remade Metal Gear Solid, for example, it's like I know the story of Metal Gear Solid inside and out. The dear brother, like none of that is going to hit for me like it did the first time. But at the same time, I have to acknowledge that there will be some people playing Metal Gear Solid for the very first time. Like in this case, some people playing Knights of the Old Republic for the very first time and being introduced to all these twists and da-da-da-da-da. But I do think, like you said, is a remaster not the sort of happy medium in the way that, Blu-ray is introduced. Now you can buy Apocalypse Now on Blu-ray, but we haven't fucking remade the film. The film is the same film that it always was. It's just now widescreen and it's on Blu-ray. So like, and maybe that's unfair because like games are a bit different and, old games don't play as well as modern games. But
yeah,
I
just think if you're
going
to do all this interesting thinking and you're going to really like apply yourself, it's just a shame that you're having to like color in someone else's lines. It just doesn't. It feels like a waste of ability in a way. Like the reason people love these games in the first place is because they were at one time new and exciting and creative and gambles, which paid off. And if we just endlessly, like that's like going, well, it's 2021 and this is the pool of games we have. Like work within this, it was 20 years ago. Like, are you really telling me that? We haven't come on so far as a medium that you wouldn't have more to say doing something completely new in this universe. It's just, I don't know, it sort of bums me out, really.
I mean, the one thing we aren't mentioning is the fact that it is Star Wars and the stranglehold that Disney has, it's theirs, so fair enough. But over this, like, they shut down Amy Hennig's thing. They shut down, what was the other Star Wars thing? Like, maybe they wanted to do something original. Maybe they wanted to do something a bit more exciting. And the overlords were like, well, Knights of the Old Republic is tried and tested. Do that. Yeah, I don't know. Pure speculation.
Yeah,
maybe not.
I don't know. In the run-up to that PlayStation thing, I was getting really bummed out on Twitter just seeing how much chat revolved around people's wish lists of what they wanted to see, and it was so lacking in ambition. People have now been trained to desire the most mundane things. Like, it was just remakes and remasters. When it's got to the point of like, what's the thing you would most like to see in the world? Oh, a better version of something I've already seen and I know inside out. You're like, what a crushing lack of imagination you have. Like that, and I feel that way about these projects. Like, it doesn't really matter how clever they are or how smart they are. Just sort of embarrassing, that this is where we're now at. That the best thing you can imagine is a new version of something you played 15 years ago. Like, yikes. I'm fine with like sequel culture. That's fine.
I'm in agreement with
that's
you.
Something new. But this remake, and people say like all films have been doing this for years. Like, there are so many more like films made. Like, the whole process is so much quicker there that it kind of like, that is true. There are a lot of remakes in films, and admittedly, there's some of this kind of creative bankruptcy in film as well, in that everyone's just, if it's not an existing IP, you're basically not allowed to make it. But at the same time, there's so much more happening in that space that I feel like you can kind of get by. But in games where increasingly, it feels like the flow of big games is sort of slowing down because of the cost and the effort of making them. We can't afford to waste those few opportunities on just noodly nostalgia pieces.
Well, Matthew, let me cut across
you
because
you're going to hit me up with some more bullshit.
I'm going to hit you up with a new video game. Imagine that.
What?
That new video game.
There aren't any new video games.
There's one, I swear, and it is called Forspoken. This was originally known as Project Athia way back when it was first revealed. We've seen this before. This wasn't revealed, but we got a kind of first like proper extended look at gameplay.
Yeah.
It stars this young girl who's living in modern day New York City, down on her luck. There's a cat there. She probably likes the cat. I'm sure you can pet the cat, because the internet enjoys that. But then she gets sucked into this portal and goes into this fantasy world where
she's got a lot of bangles.
Well, I believe it's one that is wrapped around her arm and it talks to her, a la the sword in Transistor or other things. Well, that's the first thing that came to my head. did I suppose, yeah, did you see this? What do you think of this whole, like, somebody from modern world being sucked into the fantasy world, and it's like, oh, this person is going to be...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not exactly groundbreaking.
Not about the innovativeness
the concept, you're like, sure, whatever, we're there, let's get moving.
Do you like that then? Do you like the kind of fish out of water? Yeah.
I don't really like. I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. Like,
okay,
as a reason for someone to discover a new world, which is something that happens in games a lot. It's like no worse than, like, I'd rather that than Amnesia.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I mean, again, a kind of depressing sign of the times. Like, that's where we're at, where you're like, I would rather fish out. Those are the two options.
Fish out of water.
Right, we're starting this game. What have you got? Well, it can be a fish out of water or Amnesia. Which is it going to be? Let's roll the dice. I thought this looked fun. It's a little bit tech demo-y, isn't it? Like, the world looks sort of preposterously kind of clean, and I think it's 'cause the world and her movement reminds me a bit of the epic of the Unreal tech demo there was last year when they showed it on PS5. It was like some person gallivanting around canyons. It was the Canyon Gallivanting demo, I believe it was called.
We all enjoyed it, yeah. It was good stuff.
And this kind of has that vibe too.
I thought her face was very rigid. It seemed still quite new, because the voice acting seemed full of life, but her face seemed lifeless.
This is the thing that's being made by Mr. Final Fantasy 15, right?
It's yes, it is.
It's the Tabata game. Who, I thought that, I'm pretty sure that's right. Who was obviously the guy who steered the giant mess that was Final Fantasy 15 over the finish line, and I always thought was kind of pretty sound in interviews and things. Honestly, right now, Square Enix get bonus points for it just being an actual new thing. Trying, and they always do this every generation. I think you can trust Square Enix to throw quite a lot of mad new bullshit into the mix. Very little of it sticks, and goes on to become anything more. But at least it's something that you're like, well, I don't know how this is going to play out. How nice to have a game to look forward to where you don't know how it ends already. I mean, that's good.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Just where everyone points out Final Fantasy VII remake, and you're like, yeah, I know they're, but also Canyon Gallivanter here. So
there was, not a remake, a sequel. You said you don't have any problem with these. No, I have a major problem with this series, but I believe you enjoyed the last one. Have you any interest in this Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Matthew? Because Forspoken, this is the first time we got a proper decent look at it. It's out on the 25th of March next year.
Only in that, I enjoyed Borderlands 3 enough. I enjoy the central kind of loop of those games. I must admit, the thing I'm less enamored with when it comes to Gearbox is the writing and the jokes. It's not quite my cup of tea, their tone. And this is obviously leaning heavily kind of you like our zany bullshit. This is going to be big on that. But yeah, this just looked like an absolutely acceptable video game to me. It's very hard when things sell themselves on zaniness, because once you get into it, you realise it's probably a bit more gently paced and it's not as hectic as a trailer. But I felt the same way about Borderlands. I prefer the games much more to how they sort of sell themselves.
Well, it's Borderlands, but obviously it has the D&D sort of fantasy style.
I haven't played the DLC in 2 that this is sort of based on, because that's right, isn't it? It's based on a.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah.
There was Tiny Tina's D&D campaign.
Dragons and Dickheads or something. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, people liked it, so they've made it into a game.
Dragons and Dickheads.
And then the last PC-related thing that's worth chatting about, Matthew, is one that, well, I was going to say I'm sure you're a bit excited about, but after our previous conversation, I'm not sure.
No, this is something. Now you see,
Uncharted.
This is fine. This is just something coming to a different platform.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's allowed. Like unlocking this game so that it can be enjoyed properly, in full visual splendor on PC. I've not got a problem with that. That's very reasonable behavior, and like PlayStation should do this with all their first-party games. Free them from the limitations of PlayStation consoles, and also it really upsets the PlayStation fans, which is big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I know. Like I have played Uncharted 4, so like, yeah, that's I like it a lot. Apart from the last couple of hours, which are not very good. Yeah, about for this. It's really, really shiny. Great colours. Very pretty.
Very pretty, proper PlayStation first party, big blockbuster style thing. Like it's Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy.
Yeah. Oh, it's really flashy. And Lost Legacy is great as well. Yeah, they're both really, really good fun. Yeah.
Good.
That's that for an exciting hot take. Uncharted is fun.
There were a few other bits and pieces as well, like that Project Athia on the brain. What was it called? Oh, there was the indie game where you could fly, you could turn into a seagull and all that. That seemed nice. There were some other things as well, but yeah, it was mostly Marvel and Spider-Man and blah, blah, blah. But there was one game as well that they threw in there, Matthew. And all confirmed now, Alan Wake Remastered. Talking more about remastered and remakes and all that. Now, the exciting thing about this is that it's out quite soon, the 5th of October. The remaster is going to support 4K, and you're going to have a director's commentary option as well from Sam Lake. Now, I always think those, like, I think they did it in Portal. They've done it in a lot of games by now, I suppose. The sort of director's commentary. I always think that's such a cool idea. And I always think, I'll play the game through that. I never do. I never play through a game again with director's commentary. But the option is nice, nonetheless. This was actually announced on a fan website, a community website called A Sudden Stop, which is a terrific way to announce this. I love that Remedy went this route. I suppose it just, shows a great deal of respect and love for the community that have been clamoring for anything Alan Wake for a long, long time. And just one little side Alan Wake story here. Alan Wake 2, which has been rumoured, I think we've even spoken about it here before. Games leaker Jeff Grubb, he said in the last week that, quote, Remedy are working with Epic Games on producing an Alan Wake 2, or at least it's in the planning stages. So does that turn into anything concrete and real? I'm hopeful. I think so. I don't imagine it will get derailed. Yeah, I mean, sadly we've gone through all our remastered and kind of takes and all that, but like, this is a remaster. It is clearly testing the waters. Or well, maybe not testing the waters if they're already in production on an Alan Wake 2. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I feel like this is slightly more exciting news for console gamers.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it's like how it looks is kind of how it looks on PC in my mind anyway.
Okay,
like,
I get what you're saying.
Like I think you'll feel the benefits of that remaster more if you've only played like the 360 version ages ago. Like this, it doesn't. When I was watching this trailer, a part of me was like, "Isn't this just exactly how it looked?" Like I'm sure if you put them side by side, like the model's a bit different, but yeah,
No, I get what you're saying.
So I played a bit, recently again on PC through Game Pass, and like, so yeah, it was kind of like, yep, that's certainly what Alan Wake looks like. So yeah, it seems like quite a simple remaster, right?
I mean, yeah.
The director's commentary stuff, that's fun. All the trimmings, it's a beloved thing, and also because they're building that Remedy expanded universe or whatever, it makes sense to have everything in a very like modern, playable state that everyone can kind of enjoy.
So you can slap them all together as buy the Remedy collection and all that.
Yeah, sounds. I'm glad Remedy are doing their thing. I don't think I will spend money again on Alan Wake. Like, I feel like I've played it and enjoyed it and got what I need to get from it.
Ready for Alan Wake 2 if it comes out.
Ready for Alan Wake 2.
But are you ready, Matthew, for Tech Corner?
That's the best bit about not doing this for the last couple of weeks.
Matthew, apparently they're making a 4000 series card that NVIDIA lot. So my question to you is...
Look at this. The planning that goes into this is unreal.
So those are your news stories for the last week. Now it's time to get on to what we've been playing over the last 7 days.
Show and tell. Show and tell, we can't afford a proper jingle. It's meant to be jingle.
Yes, show and tell is the part of the PC Gaming Weekspot where we take you through and tell you about the games that we've been playing over the last week. Now, the big game, Matthew, out this week is Deathloop. I haven't played it. You have played a little bit of Deathloop.
I've played like 3 hours of it.
All right, so... the footage that the people at home are going to see if you're watching the video version is not footage Matthew has captured. This is footage that Bethesda themselves have thrown out. But yeah, after 3 hours, what are your early impressions, I believe they call it in games media?
Yeah, there's quite a lot going on in this game, is my early impression. Like, those 3 hours kind of all felt like tutorial.
Oh, okay.
Because, this game is reasonably out there structure-wise. You're in this time loop, and the rules of that time loop have to be established. The rhythm of sort of how the game's going to flow has to be established, and it has an awful lot to teach you. Like, this isn't like the tutorial isn't just kind of walk forward and then press shift to crouch under a pipe. It has to teach you how the day is structured, how you're meant to think about the world, and so it kind of takes it quite slowly at the start.
As somebody who has a very, very basic understanding of this game, that it's sort of Dishonored meets Hitman.
Yeah, so the big thing of it is that you're stuck in this time loop one day on this island. To get out of the time loop, you have to kill all these people across the island in the same day. The problem is they're all in different places at different times, so the grand arc of it is working out like how you can kill these 8 targets. Time, though, in this world, it doesn't just move on. It's not in real time. Basically, It splits the day into 4 segments, like morning, noon, afternoon, and night. And there are 4 areas, and you can visit any of those areas in any of those time periods. And once you enter the area, you've got like as much time as you want. So like you could spend, you wouldn't, but you could spend like 10 hours in like one area in its morning state. And then you could go on and spend a load of time in another area in its noon state. Then you could go back to that first area and see it in its afternoon state, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that, when you say it, is fine, but like it's trying to show you in game kind of like what that means. So that's why the tutorial is quite kind of guided. this is a game which is really about like freedom of approach, but it has to give you a very guided dose of it to begin with to kind of get that idea in your head. Some people may kind of balk at that a little bit, but I think most people will kind of get it, and it establishes the characters and the story. What it does mean is that I've not been able to like massively dig into, what the game proper feels like, because I've just been kind of getting my head around it. I've had a little snoop, and what I can say is that I think it ticks your arcane boxes in terms of like world design and world building. If you like sneaking around people's houses and picking up documents to learn their backstories and listening to NPC chatter to get an idea of what's going on, this has that in spades. I mean, because each area has these 4 time states and they change between them, it's that times 4. Like, you'll want to go back and see how time has moved on and learn what information you can only learn in those individual time periods. So yeah, that's like the very much the kind of arcane side of things. I wouldn't say it feels like massively Hitman-y to me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's just because, like, perspective wise, it handles like a shooter. You're this very agile. It's a bit more climbing and sort of climbing around in the same way that I wouldn't say like Dishonored feels Hitman-y.
But is it, from the pre-release stuff, my understanding was you could manipulate your targets and get them to go to an area and kill them via the environment.
Yeah, so because I haven't like achieved that yet.
Okay.
I think there is that stuff, but I don't think it's quite this. I get the feeling it's not quite the same kind of clockwork kind of construction individually. Like, it's more about learning the grand structure of the world. So, like, without spoiling anything, like, I've killed one of the kind of 8 people you're trying to kill, who are called visionaries, and it was very clumsy. Like, I went in and basically had a big sort of firefight, almost more of a traditional sort of boss battle, for want of a better word. But when you explore their lab area, you find a machine which, if you had the password to that machine,
right,
you can like, do something to the area which will kill them kind of like instantly or easier, I would imagine. But to get that password, you have to go to another area, or you might learn that password in the same area at a different time of day. So, like, information's kind of a weapon. You're basically collecting like passwords and information throughout the day. That's what you retain, and then you're using that to kind of get ahead of the game at other times, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So rather than like, Hitman, it is definitely more kind of immersive simmy.
Yeah, I just say it's like Hitman, but like slightly sort of zoomed out. It's like slightly bigger picture stuff is how it feels.
Right.
What's interesting about this game, and I think probably going to be the most divisive or decide, what people are going to get out of this, is like where it sits, like on the action scale. Because I don't know if you agree with this, I feel like a lot of the promotional material has sold this as like an action first experience.
Yes, yeah.
Like, it's all gambling around and jumping through windows with a machine gun and very, very hectic. And that is true. Like, it is very much that. Like, it's there is that element to it. But definitely in this early part of the game, like, stealth is also quite key to kind of get your bearings. It almost feels like it's, it almost feels like a mix of both, that you have to use sort of stealth to kind of like sort of navigate and get a feel for a place. But like, when it kicks off, it is going to kick off in a kind of big way. Which is kind of interesting, because I think people who are used to playing arcane games and like literally ghosting all the way through, I think they've even said like that's maybe not possible. Like, it's not designed for that. Like, you're going to have to actually do some fighting, and at some points, like, you can't get through this game unseen. Like, yeah, in fact, just based on the tutorial, like, you're definitely going to have to engage at times.
Right.
So and that's kind of interesting because I feel like they've always wrestled as a team. Like they've made great stealth systems. And in Dishonored, like they also had lots of really interesting like action mechanics. But they always said, like, you know, if you play one way or the other, like you never see the other half of the game, like you never engage with it. And I feel like this is a very like clear effort to try and get players to engage with like everything they've made. So like the fact that you're weak at the start means you play it slower, but then the game will give you, there'll be a natural like power curve where you're getting like more tooled up as the loops kind of progress. So it'll become more of an action game, I imagine, is the flow.
Okay.
Also, just within the days themselves, like when you go into the levels in the morning time frame, like it's super quiet. You know, everyone's like asleep or kind of like ambling around, or like they're basically kind of like shaking off the hangover from the night before. So the game feels very different. It's very quiet. But like by the time you get to the night time frame, everyone's up. There are loads more guards, and it just becomes like a much more aggressive like landscape to be in. So you know, even within the individual days, there's this transition from like a sort of stealth game to action game, which is kind of interesting.
That is, and that's quite well. It's quite good to hear that. How many did you say there are 4 areas?
Yeah, there's 4, and they're huge. They're like,
but
they're bigger than like I would say like individual Dishonored maps.
Oh wow, okay. But so and from again early impressions, and you know you've only played a small bit so far. Like the different times of the day, they make a difference in these areas as well, and how
I mean there are a couple of bigger. So there's some stuff with like weather changing and like a cold front comes in and like freeze it. Like there's an area with like a lot of water where at certain times of day it's all frozen over. So you get all these. You can use that like icy approach to kind of like circumnavigate certain chunks of the level. So you can just run across the sea that would normally kill you. Things like that. I haven't dug into it, you know, enough to kind of get a feel for how things really change. But you definitely sense that kind of escalating enemy presence. Also, there are just events which you can change and mess with, because there are things you see happening, and you're like, oh, well, I know that this begins in this time frame. So in theory, if I went to this area earlier in the day, I could stop this from happening, or I could set this up as a trap or something. Like you quickly get into that kind of mindset of like, okay, I can't do everything, you know, like I've learned this information, and that's the most important thing I can do in this particular loop is just get clued up so I can apply this next time. Like I don't like I am. In fact, I'm not 100% sure there is no way of like completing the game in your first loop. Like if you were amazing at it,
right,
you couldn't do it.
Okay.
Like there is information, it's just too spread out. Like you have to go to lots of different places at lots of different times to get everything you need to know to beat the world. So they kind of gate it that way.
Have you had much dealings with because there's 8 characters you have to kill, isn't it? Have you had much dealings with the one that can be controlled by another player?
So yes, that's interesting. She's called you're called Colt, and Julianne is sort of like your sort of nemesis, who kind of like introduces you to the world at the start as well. And she's like if you're playing it without the online stuff switched on, she appears at like she like invades your world as an AI character. And if you play it online, she'll invade it and she'll be human controlled. It's only like there's like a scripted encounter to kind of introduce her, but after that, like she hasn't appeared like organically yet in my world.
Okay.
I mean, admittedly, like I've only sort of done the tutorial encounter with her, which wasn't too difficult, but she's not like I've seen some people liken her to like the big sister in Bioshock 2.
Okay.
In that, you know, it's just an enemy that's stronger and has more attacks and kind of comes after you quite relentlessly. And but I don't think you're totally screwed. Like you can fight her quite, you have a chance of fighting her fine. If anything, that character will become more interesting in the hands of other players. Like I've been talking to some friends who have been playing this for review and have played like a lot more of it and have had a chance to sample that stuff. And I've seen them describe it as like playing as Juliana feels like the end game in a way,
Right.
in that you play through the campaign to learn the world and then you use all that knowledge to basically be a dick to other people. So like you master, you know what everyone is trying to achieve in every area at any given time of the day. And then you use that knowledge to really go after them relentlessly in the end game, which I think, and it sounds really fun, because, she has like a kind of that she has like an Assassin's Creed ability in that she can pose as an NPC.
Oh. Okay.
So like the social stealth, so she can like, basically infiltrate locations that she knows important people are going to be there and like play as an NPC character in that area. So she can kind of pop out of nowhere. I'm always into that kind of stuff. I really loved those modes when Assassin's Creed did them with the, trying to act like an NPC is really, really good fun. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the idea that like that's something to look forward to once you've done the story proper.
So yeah, looking forward to actually really kind of diving in.
Yeah, definitely. Really stylish. The voice actor and the main character are really good. Like,
good.
He's really because it throws all the shit at you. The character in the game, is also kind of massively confused and helps kind of hold it together. Like he himself is super confused by it and kind of reacts as you're reacting in a way. He's very sweary, very funny, I think, like very, very well written, really well performed. Like he's early on anyway, he almost feels like the glue that's holding it all together because there's always disparate parts, and just having someone who is like as frustrated as you are by this whole thing, but also like when you do make breakthroughs and you start achieving stuff, he's like really gleeful about it. It kind of has that sort of yes, now we're kind of cooking with gasoline kind of vibe. It's fun. It's just super classy and like arcane as hell, but has its own very distinct energy to like Dishonored. It feels a lot more lighter on its feet, lighter as a world. It's a lot more colourful and sort of 60s sort of spy pastiche. It's really, really cool. But I do need to
play more.
I've just scratched the surface.
Hopefully I'm gonna try and play it over the next week, and you might play
maybe we'll do like a proper like Deathloop breakdown next episode.
So very good. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that the first couple of hours are very good anyway. So yeah, we're going to take a very quick break, and then we will be back right after this.
Listen to the Electronic Wireless Show, rockpapershotgun.com's PC gaming podcast.
I'm Nate.
I'm Matthew.
And I'm Alice, and every Thursday we chat about our favourite things in PC games.
That could be the greatest giants, the coolest magic, or the best mysteries.
Although Alice will have to stop me making every episode all about fish, or Anthony Hopkins, or Rome.
So check out the Electronic Wireless Show every Thursday, available on all your podcatching apps or direct from rockpapershotgun.com.
Welcome back, dear listener, dear viewer, to the PC Gaming Weekspot. Another game that we've played, or I have played at least, over the last week is called Toem. This is a game I first saw at Double Fine's Day of the Devs during E3, and it looked an absolute delight. And after seeing about 20 seconds of it, I think you'll know what I mean. It is so chilled out and so pleasant, but not a piece of piss. There are challenging aspects to it. So it is essentially an adventure game where to solve the puzzles you need to use this camera that you have.
Right.
And so you'll be given puzzles. Somebody in a town will say, I saw a big fish out in the water and it's driving me up the walls. No one believes me that the fish is there. You go out onto the port, onto the harbour, take a picture of the fish, you show the person, you go, thank you very much. Now people will believe me. And then you get a star. And then you collect so many stars, and then you're able to move on to the next area. And that's essentially what it is. But it is so just going around, it's not like you can't upgrade. Well, I tell a lie. You get one upgrade to your camera, but it's not like this ever evolving mechanic. It is pretty much point and shoot. And it's just how the puzzles will change because of what the person will be asking you to take snaps of. And it's not massively deep, but it is quite pleasant and quite nice, and it's very short. But it's something that I just kind of, in truth, I don't have a ton to say about it, but I just wanted to highlight it because I thought it was quite nice.
It's not a little bit diddly dee.
No, it skirts the line between good and diddly dee. No, I think it's okay. It's okay. I'm just trying to think of interactions I had with characters, and none of them were shitheads. And I think mostly all right. It wasn't too twee or anything like that.
I must admit, I don't know much about this game. I really bounce off this current thing for games about photography. I hate photography in real life. Not I hate it as in I can't appreciate it. I personally hate taking photos. I have no interest in taking photos. I find it sort of frustrating, not pointless. But even when I'm on holiday, I just I'm happy just to look at stuff and kind of remember it as I do. But there seems to be so many games about people taking photos, or outside of that, just so many games where people fall in love with these photo modes. And for me, it's just yep, I am as shit at in-game photography as I am real-world photography. So I am inherently unsatisfied by this whole process.
Well, I mean, I will say the photography in this and, taking a successful picture isn't based upon the quality of the photograph. It is it is purely mad old man says I see fish in the water and some people don't believe me, and you just have to take the picture. It's there's no critique on the composition of the photograph.
Okay, well that's maybe I can play. Most games don't, but it's just they don't critique you and that you have the freedom to do them. However, it's just, I don't know. I find it, my approach to photography is so sort of utilitarian that it's just kind of bleak. I remember I was playing Breath of the Wild, and in that you have to basically document everything in the world. You can take a picture of it, and then that unlocks its encyclopedia entry.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just I'd have all my weapons and I'd just be dropping them on the ground to take pictures of them. So my encyclopedia is just full of all these really ugly pictures of just things lying on grass. There's no interesting composition. There's no delicate, eye for detail. And it's every time I open that thing, it's just a reminder of how little I grasp photography.
I mean, this is pretty much just it. You don't have to be this masterful artist when it comes to taking pictures of things. It is purely a mechanism to solve the puzzles involved. And yeah, for the most part, Quite pleasant, not blow away in any way, but pleasant basically. And that is out. I think it's out Friday, off the top of my head. Yes. If you're interested in that. So yeah, there is definitely a wave of photography games. I do agree with you. And there is somewhat of a wave of sort of wanky music games as well.
No. Segue.
I haven't played this wanky music game. I want to though, because I like a lot of wanky music games.
This isn't a wanky game.
Interesting. All right, I'm delighted you say that because I was a little bit worried. To me, looking at footage, this could have went either way. I wasn't too sure. So yeah, tell me, Matthew. This is the game I want to know about. The Artful Escape.
Yeah. So this is it's been long in development. I played at E3 2017, I think, and played a 5-minute demo and thought, wow, that was absolutely amazing. I can't wait to play that. So I've been really looking forward to it for a long time. It's about a boy whose uncle is a sort of Bob Dylan-esque sort of folk legend. And this boy, Francis, also being a musician, is sort of expected to sort of tread in the footsteps of his footprints of his uncle, and basically pursue this folk career. But in reality, he just wants to sort of shred on his guitar. Now, I'm going to put my hands up early on in this and say that, like, I'm quite bad at talking about music genres and like placing like music in this, so I'm not entirely sure what it is that Francis plays, but it's kind of like this sort of epic sort of I guess a bit kind of like Queen, kind of like mad sort of guitar solos over this kind of quite kind of galactic sounding sort of soundscape.
Okay, yeah. So
I don't know if there is like such a thing as like epic rock or something, but it's
kind of an arena rock anthem.
Yeah, it's weird because the game's got like visually this quite sort of psychedelic energy, and it like really draws on like the kind of the mad sort of sci-fi and fancy vistas that you get on like prog rock albums. It's like big kind of crystal mountains with lasers coming out of them and stuff. It draws so many inspirations from so many different places that I couldn't quite put my finger on, like, musically, like, what it is. But that's probably more to do with me than the game. So he gets sucked into space to go on this kind of quest of self-discovery to sort of work out his musical identity. And he's literally building it piece by piece. Like, the first chunk of the game is about, like, establishing your backstory. And then there's another chunk of the game which is about establishing your look. And so on and so forth. He does this mainly by platforming. Like, you walk through these levels, very simple platforming, where the focus, I would say, isn't really on navigating levels at all. Like, it's kind of impossible to fail. It's just about like experiencing this amazing audiovisual thing where when any time you can kind of sort of shred away on the guitar, and it kind of completes the backing soundtrack, and the sound of the music kind of brings the world to life. So it's more about just witnessing that than it is like actually kind of like playing the game in any meaningful way. You basically just sort of, for most levels, you basically just hold right and hold the guitar button and just let the game kind of do its thing. Okay. Which isn't like a criticism as such. Like, I didn't come into this expecting it to be a platforming game. I will say, like, I wish it had like escalated mechanically a bit. Like it like the first level is basically exactly the same as the last level. So really the whole thing hinges on just how much you connect with how, whether you dig that audio visual thing. It's also, what you're seeing here is like you have these sort of Simon Says sections.
Is this the most sort of interactive part of the game?
Sort of, yeah. They're also weirdly the most boring bits. Oh. But you have these big sort of like intergalactic monsters that kind of pop out a little tune, and then you match it with like 5 buttons. But the whole thing is like, you're here to discover self-expression, but then the focus of the game is like literally repeating what someone else does over and over again, which I think is a little bit muddled messaging-wise. The music in them's fine, these sections, and I like the monster designs. They're pretty wild. But like, yeah, I'm not saying I wanted this to be like Guitar Hero and you were hitting loads of complicated notes. I mean, the developer of it, the brilliantly named Johnny Galvatron, has said that he didn't want it to be like that. He wanted it, it's not a game about like challenging you. It's just a game about like enjoying and going with the flow of it. And definitely anyone can get through this from start to finish with like minimum of fuss. I just wish there was like an element to it where you could express yourself a bit more. Like there are a couple of sections where it gives you that 5-note setup from the Simon Says while you're like riding an animal, and you can just sort of wail away and input different notes, and it all sounds great. And they're like, you're not composing a tune, but you are controlling the tune a bit more. And it feels quite exciting and empowering. Like they're probably the best bits of the game, because you're just like, oh yeah, I'm just playing all these notes. And, I know I'm not playing a guitar, but I feel like I am expressing myself in some way in this world. And I wish the game had been more about that. Like I wish it had that 5-note input for like the whole thing. So you're constantly just mashing away, because then you could replay the levels and hear them differently the next time. As it is, it felt like I was just seeing and hearing this truly spectacular thing, but it was kind of one and done. It's quite short. It took me about 2.5 hours. And, replaying bits of it to do capture, it's like, yeah, this is, I have seen 100% of this game. Like this game serves up everything that is good about itself on a plate to everyone. And that is to be celebrated a bit. In terms of like accessibility, and it just, it's not embarrassed about going for it and putting its best foot forwards, but it's also quite hard to imagine like what you'd get out of it from doing it again. So yeah, like I feel like I'm slightly on the cooler end of this, just because I feel like there could be something else to it, but what's here is like rad as hell.
So when you say something else to it, you mean
something else, like musically, like like I say, the Simon Says sections don't quite land for me. I wish there was more of those sections where you can freestyle a bit more. Like those are good. Weirdly, I liken this to this in the review. It's a little bit like Wii Music in those sections.
Okay. Where
it's more about like anyone can make music, and it will kind of like harmonize and do all this stuff to make it sound good, so you feel like super kind of pleased with yourself. Where a lot of this, I felt like I was just holding the shred button for the entire level just to hear, because if you don't hold the shred button, you just hear the backing track and it doesn't really come alive without that guitar part. So yeah, I'm probably overthinking what is fundamentally just a cool thing you're just meant to enjoy, minimum of fuss. And it is, outside of just the music and, the platforming levels, there's a lot of like story beats where you like chat to these kind of characters. They're really well written. Like it's genuinely very funny game. Really good use of a voice cast, which is kind of interesting, putting this next to 12 minutes actually, which obviously made a great big deal out of like, we've got James McAvoy and Daisy Ridley and all this kind of stuff. And I felt like they didn't really fit the game, or, I didn't really feel they were particularly convincing as voice actors. Well, this has as starry a cast. It's got like Mark Strong, Lena Headey,
Carl Weathers,
Jason Schwartzman, but like they're much smaller roles, but everyone nails it, and the writing's funnier, and they feel like big performances. They're playing quite weird characters. Like Jason Schwartzman is playing a weird brain in a jar, and he puts on a funny, interesting voice. It's still him, but same with Mark Strong, who actually like isn't like the first person you might think of for like a big silly alien role. But it's quite a goofy turn from him. Like it's probably in his general career one of the sillier things he's done. which
Right.
I quite liked that they picked quite an unusual person to do that. Carl Weathers is absolutely brilliant in this. He's probably the other main character. I'd say it's kind of about your relationship with him, and he's this other kind of intergalactic rocker. He's a little bit like Rufus from Bill and Ted.
Okay.
Big Bill and Ted energy to this game throughout. Like its vision of like rock legends in the future is very similar to like Bill and Ted's future, with all like the big holograms of them playing guitars and stuff. I'm probably making it sound like I'm being more down on it. It's like the more kind of critically you kind of try and connect with the game and talk about it as like, a mechanical thing.
Yeah.
Like the sort of the rope, or not the ropier, the kind of flimsier the whole thing looks. But actually, when you're playing it, you're just like, yeah, this is fucking rad. I'm sliding down this like intergalactic mountain while this like insane music plays. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It sounds it. And that is on Game Pass. So I will make my business to play it. And about 2.5 hours, you said.
Yeah. I think it's really solidified like my thinking about like Annapurna games, in that they're all really like audio-visual things, like rather than things that you really get, and I kind of lose yourself in a kind of the interactivity of a thing. I think it's more just about experiencing them, and this is very much in keeping with that.
Very good. Very good. Yes, Burning Questions is a part of the PC Gaming Weekspot, where indeed we turn to you for your correspondence, for your emails, for your burning questions. You can reach us at any stage throughout the week. Weekspot at rockpapershotgun.com, and then we may read out what you sent us on this very show. Starting us off, Matthew, we have the wonderful Mog, who gave us 10 English pounds during the YouTube premiere of the last episode so long ago. Thank you very much, Mog. You're an absolute delight. Mog said, to keep the stress of work at bay, I've been listening to the Divinity Original Sin 2 soundtrack.
Classic.
What are your favourite game soundtracks and or live performances of soundtracks? Great show, chaps. Mog. Thank you, Mog. Favorite game soundtracks, Matthew? Do you have any?
Yeah, I love the soundtrack. They're not really PC games, but whatevs. I really love the soundtrack to Xenoblade Chronicles, the Wii JRPG. Absolutely one of the all-time great JRPG soundtracks. But just because it hasn't got Final Fantasy in the title, no one seems to care as much. I love the Ace Attorney music. I really love the live. There's like a live orchestra version of Ace Attorney where they did a big concert, and those tunes played with an orchestra are absolutely amazing. And when you hear them, you're like, why has no one made an Ace Attorney film with this music? So it'd be so rad. There's also a jazz album of Ace Attorney, which absolutely rules. Too many to mention. I love so many game soundtracks. How do you feel about game soundtracks? You a fan?
Sonic 3, done. And thank God Michael Jackson wasn't involved. Sega actually came out all the better for that one.
Those incredibly old, grainy Mega Drive soundtracks with like audio clips of someone going in the background.
That's it, actually. Well done. You've replicated the Sonic 3 soundtrack brilliantly there. It's incredible. No, there's loads, but for because we actually have a lot of questions, Sonic 3 would be my answer. But I mean, the Hotline Miami soundtrack is also fantastic. But I don't know, maybe that's cheating because you've licensed tracks in there as well. But thank you very much, Mog. Doug Diamond also sent us in a super chat during the last YouTube premiere. Thank you very much, Doug. $10. And Doug said, no questions, just cheers. Thank you very much, Doug.
Cheers to you.
Very nice of you. Bobby Bounty got in touch and signed off as Bobby Bounty rather than Bounty Bobby.
Oh, the mystery of Bounty Bobby or Bobby Bounty continues.
Bobby said, "Hey
Maybe
guys."
this is someone else.
Oh, somebody posing as
My arch nemesis is Bounty Bobby.
shit. That would be good. Bobby said, "Hey guys, I'm currently sat in Dubai airport waiting for a connecting flight, watching the last episode and enjoying it thoroughly. Thought I'd send you a question. Half-Life 3? You can answer this question with no information, then publish an article called RPS Weekspot talk about Half-Life 3 for mucho views. You're welcome. In all seriousness, once I get the Steam Deck later this year, hopefully, or 2022, Half-Life 2 is one of the first games I'm excited about replaying. I really hope there's another entry one day. Bonus question, if you want it, are you guys excited about the Netflix live-action remake of Cowboy Bebop? The new images released this week have me ambivalent. Kind regards, Bobby Bounty." I'm not sure if Half-Life 3,
Half-Life 3?
Matthew?
Half-Life 3? Yeah, after Half-Life Alyx, if you've played that game leaves you really hankering for Half-Life 3. And also paints a picture of, I would say, a Valve that is super engaged with Half-Life again. It felt so open-ended, like it felt like, you know,
It didn't feel like the conclusion to the series.
no, if anything, it felt like to me like a clear sign of, yes, we will make more Half-Life.
Cowboy Bebop, any interest? Do you know?
Yeah, I've seen bits of Cowboy Bebop. I've never seen its entirety. I mean, like, I like the look of the shots and everything. It's got a cool cast. It's John Cho, isn't it?
I've no idea. I don't know
He's
much about
playing,
it.
is it Spike, the main guy? Yeah, very, very trendy. Yeah, I'll imagine I'll watch it.
Very
There
good.
you go. That's that for exciting analysis.
It's good enough. Lucas got in touch. Lucas said, "Hello lads, I've been listening to the Week Spot for quite some time now, and I still enjoy the unique mixture of informative content and charming unprofessionalism."
What? What the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking? How dare you, Lucas? Lucas goes on, "Now, of course, I wouldn't contact you only for the sake of compliments and insults, apparently. No, I also have a couple of burning questions. One, in a past episode, you came to the agreement that World War II is a little played out, video game-wise. So what wars would you like to...
That sounds like something broad and dumb, I would have said.
Yes, we agree. So what wars would you like to experience in a video game? 2, if Sir David Attenborough would agree to voice any video game character, who should that be? Thanks and keep up the great show. Lucas from Olton, former home of Switzerland's largest streetwalkers patch." Very interesting.
What does that mean? Streetwalkers, like, is that a pedestrianised zone?
Longest streetwalkers patch, and it's the former home, so they've taken it away and they just put roads in there. I'm guessing. More on that, Lucas, would be appreciated.
Yeah, please clarify.
What wars do you want, Matthew? What wars do you want to be put in the middle of? Put a gun in your hands.
It's more of a general war fatigue. They're all a bit sinister, especially the modern wars.
Just a little bit, yeah.
What I've never done, I'll tell you what I've never seen in the game, like American, like, Civil War, like, first person, where you're just standing in a line doing all that. You put the thing in, you're like, and then you have one shot and everyone stands in a line and then they go, and then that's it.
One shot every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sure people have done that as a strategy game, but, like, that experience of, like, standing in a line doing stuff with muskets.
I mean, like you, yeah, it is. A lot of it is more war fatigue, and basically the same stories being told over and over, and those stories are normally either about British soldiers or American soldiers, and it's we are the goodies, and there is no context for what we're doing. Hoorah! And it just becomes a little tired, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like war films do a lot more in the space of wars, you know? Like, there's more variety.
I mean, yeah, of course.
Like, where's like the three kings of war games, you know? Where's that kind of stuff? I guess Bad Company's meant to be like that, but
or like Spec Ops: The Line, I thought was very good. Like at the time, like at least it. If it came out
very
now,
bold
maybe
of it with its war is bad. Actually,
I mean, listen, yeah. If it came out now, it's a little bit like it felt a bit more novel because games were not really asking that question or posing that theory. But now some are doing it a little bit more, and maybe I'm a bit older, I'm a bit more cynical. But what was your second question, Lucas? If Sir David Attenborough could voice any video game character?
I mean, you'd think some kind of like narrator, you know, 'cause you think of him as a narrator, so like the voice of like, I don't know, the tutorial elements in like a Sim City or a City Skylines or something like a.
Yeah,
you need to place a roundabout.
I agree with you, but then would it not be more interesting? Because he asks, like, who should it be? So would it not be more interesting then to have Sir David Attenborough voice a character in...
Oh, he has to voice a video game character. Oh, interesting.
So like, you know...
Old Nathan Drake.
Ooh.
Because he's been around the world. It would have to be old. Like, if David Attenborough's old voice started coming out of like Mario, I'd be scared.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Everyone's like, why does Mario sound so sickly and frail? What about Lara Croft's dad?
Lara Croft's butler. Get him, stick David Attenborough in the freezer. That'd be good.
Let me out.
Jonathan got in touch. Jonathan said, "Morning, chaps. Hope you're well. I love the segment on the episode a few weeks back about Lawnmower Simulator, but I've got to know, where does it end? I'm not going to pretend that all of these deliberately mundane simulator games appeal to me, but just how mundane can it possibly get? Toothbrushing simulator, washing up simulator. I'd love to hear your opinions on where the line might one day be drawn before the whole genre collapses in on itself. Much love, Jonathan." Thank you, Jonathan. I don't think there is any line, to be honest, because it's not, because some, like, take a train sim world, for example, right? Massive, huge video game that does fucking gangbusters. It's just out of this bubble that we cover. Like, if you take those sizes of games out of the equation, there are so many simulators, and there are so many like indie developers making simulators as well. So something like a toothbrushing simulator or a washing up simulator, if it hasn't already been made, I'm sure it will be made. So I don't know if there is a line per se when it comes to mundane activities.
No, I think there are activities which are just too simple that, like, taken alone, like climbing up a ladder. Just
Climbing up a ladder
climbing
simulator.
simulator would be too simple. That's daft. No one would do that. You like washing up simulator? I'd be into that.
It would be like a cook serve delicious type
just the process. Like, if you really simulated like the physics of grime, like I find washing up
that's what Power Wash Simulator is. It's just it's outside. Like,
yeah. I don't think there is a line. You know, as ironic as some of these games sound, I think as long as they're like sincere, I think they can get away with anything, really.
Yep.
What I don't like is when people are like, I'm doing, like, isn't this zany that I'm making this simulator? And then actually you're approaching it from the wrong angle. I think you need to treat it with some respect and then let other people go like, that sounds zany, rather than, you know, there's some sort of jokey simulator games. There was that one about talking, isn't there? Where you control the mouth. You literally control all the muscles of the mouth. Like,
oh, I've a vague.
You're like on a date and you have to like smile at your date and you have to control all the muscles in your mouth to be like.
I can't remember what, but yeah, that does ring a bell. But yeah, I mean, there are loads of simulator games, and they will never stop. Because people like them. People will play them. People will buy them. That's what it comes down to. So thank you very much, Jonathan, for that. Let's call it there, Matthew. It has been a delight, as ever. If you want to get your burning questions sent in to us, please do email us, weekspot@rockpapershotgun.com. Lovely. Delightful to be back in the saddle, back in the habit, like Sister Mary Clarence. If you want to reach us or get more of us, there are ways
that's terrible.
to get more. You can follow us on social media. I am at Colm_Ahern. Matthew is at Mr. Basil_Pesto. Rock Paper Shotgun is at Rock Paper Shot. You can talk to some like-minded folks on Discord, discord.gg/Rock Paper Shotgun. Or you can watch the PC Gaming Weekspot on YouTube, youtube.com/Rock Paper Shot. If you want to subscribe to any of Rock Paper Shotgun's podcasts, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Search from there. If you want to buy some t-shirts, etc., go to store.readpop.com, click on the RPS logo, buy those things. If you want to support the website, get an ad-free website, extra podcasts, extra articles, go to rockpapershotgun.com/subscribe and sign up to one of those plans. But for all of your PC gaming needs, keep it on rockpapershotgun.com. Matthew, my little Deathloopian child, I'm looking forward to you playing more Deathloop and coming back to me next week with informed opinions on Colt and Julie? What's you call her? Juliana. Looking forward to that. So yeah, more Deathloop chat next week, and I'm sure Microsoft will probably buy Sega or something will happen, and we'll chat about it all next week. But now it's time for my least favourite part of the show. Matthew, this is the part of the show where must bid the listener, the viewer, adieu. So say goodbye, Matthew Castle.
Goodbye.
And say goodbye, Colm Ahern Sloan. A go for.